floor care in our schools, so I hope you guys are in the right place. Today is June 23rd, 2015, and we are excited to talk about how we can help green all of our schools. So thank you for joining us. Today, a little bit of background, but before we get started, I want to say you are joining a webinar about green cleaning that is being run by the Healthy Schools Campaign. We are a non-for-profit based in Chicago. We work on federal, state, and local programs to help support health, environment, and wellness in our schools. Everything from green cleaning to nutrition to food and fitness to improving access to school services, all with the general idea that a healthier student is going to be a more successful student. So just so you know, that this webinar series is part of our summer green cleaning webinar series. So last month we had one on engineered water that is not quite archived, will be archived on our website very soon. We also have 3 more coming up, one highlighting, called Learn from the Leaders, highlighting our Green Clean Award winners. In August, we'll be talking about the award for schools and universities, and in September, focus on infection control. So if you can join us there, we would love to see you there. A little bit about what we're doing today. We have a 1-hour-long webinar. We've got 2 speakers, so I think we're going to be able to get into depth with them with enough time at the end for questions and answers. A recording of the webinar will be made available online, as well as a downloadable version of the slides that you see here today. So if you're interested, they will be available later on. Additionally, we have a very short 1-question survey at the end. I hope you'll just take a moment to give us a little bit of feedback so we can always try to strive to do a little bit better next time. We'd like you to make sure you join our discussion, whether it's online or it's today. Follow Healthy Schools Campaign on Twitter, on Facebook. Join our conversation on schools, environment, education. Tweet us at Green Clean. Share your thoughts. We will try to respond during the webinar or at any time through social media. We would love to have your involvement. As I mentioned, we are going to have time for a Q&A, maybe more than 15 minutes. We'll see how it goes. Just ask your questions through the chat box. There should be a box in the lower right-hand side of your screen. So just type in a few questions, and then we will go through them at the end, and we will ask them of our speakers. The questions have already started coming in, so we appreciate that. We'll take more because we want to make sure that we are answering the questions that you have. Today, talking about green floor care, we got 3 speakers. Myself, I am Mark Bishop, Vice President of Policy with the Healthy Schools Campaign. I'm going to introduce our other speakers in more detail, but just so you know, we've got Bill Griffin, who's the President of Cleaning Consultant Services Incorporated, as well as Patrick Pizzo, the Assistant to the Superintendent in East Meadow Union Free School District in New York. So we're excited to have them. They're both extremely knowledgeable and great resources. So now a little bit of background just to give a little framing of what we're talking about today. Green cleaning, I'm assuming if you're here today, you know what green cleaning is, but I want to tell you how we talk about green cleaning. We talk about green cleaning as cleaning to protect health without harming the environment. And we are very deliberate here at Healthy Schools Campaign about what that means and about that order, because we clean. The reason why we clean is to protect health. The reason why we keep our buildings clean is not to have shiny floors, is not to impress the boss when he comes into our rooms. It is because we want to prevent the spread of disease. Green cleaning takes that a step further by saying not only do we want to protect health, but we want to protect our environment, both the indoor and the outdoor environment. And that becomes very important when we're talking about whether it's floor care or infection control. Our primary objective for our green cleaning program is first protecting health, followed by protecting our environment, because ultimately if we're not protecting our health, we're not achieving the ultimate goals of a cleaning program. So why do we care about green cleaning, and particularly why are we focusing on this as an organization, and why are we talking about floor care today? The 2 speakers are going to talk more in detail about floor care, but our top 5 reasons for why we focus on green cleaning are all apply across the board when we discuss the issues around our floors. But the 5 top reasons why we talk about green cleaning, and they can go, everyone might reorder this a little bit differently, but I think there's a lot of universal agreement on this list. First and foremost, we want to make sure we're helping students stay healthy and learn. We want to make sure that the environments that our students are learning in is going to keep them coming back, is going to reduce the exposures from potential chemicals that could cause or contribute to asthma, to lethargy, to any type of indoor air quality contamination, or anything that may compromise student health and ultimately their ability to learn in schools. Second, we want to make sure we're protecting the health of custodial staff. We know our custodial staff are the frontline workers who really are protecting the public health in our schools. And we want to make sure that we are taking steps to honor, respect, and ensure that they have healthy, safe work environments in which they can succeed. Third, remember that we want to increase the lifespan of our facilities. We have a responsibility to the taxpayers to, when we are building our buildings, we are maintaining our buildings in a way that maintains them for the most efficient and the longest time period possible. Whether it's about making sure that our air handlers are running efficiently, or making sure we're cleaning our carpets in a way that minimizes the wear and tear. Green cleaning can help us make sure our buildings last longer. We want to make sure we're preserving the environment. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we're talking about both outdoor and indoor environment. From an outside, we realize that the cleaning industry has a significant footprint in terms of distribution, transportation, production, extraction of chemicals. And at every step along the way, we have the ability to have an impact at reducing the environmental impact of the purchases and of the decisions that we make in our cleaning program. And then also inside our schools, we want to make sure the indoor environment is healthy, is safe, and make sure that it is a place that students can thrive. And finally, our 5th point is fiscal responsibility. When I speak to the leaders in green cleaning, I don't think there is a single one that doesn't agree with the understanding that green cleaning is part of a cost-effective and an efficient cleaning program. We cannot do more with less without a green cleaning program, because green cleaning allows us to be more efficient, to do more square footage, and to really maximize the programs that we have, and to do the most that we can with what we have. So in order to promote green cleaning, we take steps. We have a number of programs because we want to make sure that schools are doing what they can to be promoting better health, better environment, better experiences for all students. So first, we publish our 5 steps to green cleaning on our website, greencleanschools.org. That has been originally published in 2016 as a guide, and now as an online format. We have a national summit where we bring green clean leaders together. This year it's going to be in Seattle on July 30th, 31st. We have our Leadership Council. One of our speakers today, Patrick Pizzo, is one of our Leadership Council members, where we work with them to share and identify best practices and hopefully work towards promoting improved practices in schools across the country. We promote education. We do outreach or newsletters, and then we also have a tool on our website where we encourage schools to go in and take a look and tell us how they're doing and try to assess those early steps of what they can do and how we can engage with them to help them do better. So if you have any questions, if you want any resources, try going to greencleanschools.org and check out all the resources that we have. The final thing that I just want to point out that we do is we work with partnering organizations from across the country, national teachers, administrators, principals, industry. The list is extensive. We want to make sure that wherever we can be promoting green cleaning, we want to make sure that it is being done. And so we are thrilled to have so many partners that are so passionate and recognize the importance and the value of green cleaning in our schools. Also, I would like to point out that one of our speakers today is a past award winner, but we do a Green Cleaning Award for schools and universities, K-12 and universities, in partnership with the Green Cleaning Network and America Schools and University magazine. Our last year's winners did phenomenal jobs. University of Washington was our grand award winner, but we also had schools from all over the country representing various stages of cleaning programs that are doing innovative work. If you have a school, if you know of a school, if you are a school that wants to be recognized, the applications are available at the American School and University. So go to American School and University Green Clean Award, or just search for Green Cleaning Award. Download the application and apply. The application is due in September for the 2015 awards. We hope you will apply, or you will get your schools to apply and be recognized, because we need to highlight the best practices of what is going out there. Now, speaking about best practices, we've got two great speakers. Our first speaker is Bill Griffin, and before I introduce him, and I will be given a short introduction, I want to pull up a quick question, and you all can tell us a little bit about, I want to know a little bit about yourself. So, take a moment. I believe there's a poll. Take a moment to answer, and I'm going to introduce Bill. I will start by saying Bill asked me to have a very brief introduction, because when I looked through his bio, it was extensive. So we did condense it down a little bit. But Bill Griffin is a consultant, an author, and an educator in the cleaning industry. He's over 35 years experience in this industry and has written over 400 articles on cleaning, maintenance, and on self-employment. I can't imagine anything that I've done 400 times in a row. He's a cleaning industry management standard assessor, a CMI master trainer, an IICRC certified inspector, a trainer, and a master cleaner. And probably important today is he's a speaker at Healthy Schools Campaign webinar series, and we are very honored to have him. Let's take a quick look at our poll. I'm going to hit close. I am going to share. I will share this. We've got 33 facility operators. We've got manufacturers, distributors, and a bunch of others. I always have a little bit too many others. We're going to tweak this list. But good to have you. Thank you so much. I'm now going to close the poll. Bill, hopefully that gives you a little bit of context of who you're speaking to. And Bill?
Yes, it does, Mark. Thank you very much.
Great. The floor is yours with a photo of you wearing your Google glasses.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mark. Hopefully, I'm glad, happy to be here. It's a pleasure to be able to share some information with everybody. It looks like you got a good turnout. So let's go ahead and get started. Next slide, please. Sustainability and green are the future. There's no way around it. This has been progressing and moving along for a number of years. And is really becoming a very popular and a very effective approach. And it's important that not only do we do it for the value of protecting the earth and protecting the people, but also the processes have to be effective, and they also have to be competitive in the marketplace. Otherwise, there's resistance to using these processes and making the changes. Next slide, please. Floor care is a real important aspect of maintaining schools. It counts for a good percentage of the dollars and the labor that goes into it. It varies on the school, but at least 20% generally, and sometimes more. Everybody sees the floors. When people walk into the building, they see that nice shine, they see that appearance. Again, if the floor is sticky and got spots over it, their impression of the facility isn't as good. It sets the tone for cleanliness in the entire facility. When people see floors that are not well maintained, then they start looking more deeper for other things that might not be well maintained as well. So it really does set the tone. And I think also it impacts how people respect the facility they're in, whether they take care of it or whether they tend to abuse it in that process. The cleaner we keep things, the more likely people are to take care of them as well. There's also the liability factor of slip, trips, and falls. If the water's not removed on a regular basis or the maintenance procedures are not done properly, then again there's more risk that someone could fall down, get hurt, and there's lawsuits and liability that goes with that. Insurance rates go up. So there's a number of important reasons to take care of the floors in our facilities. Next slide. One of of the interesting things that I've noted here, and this has kind of taken place over the last maybe 7 to 10 years, I'd say. It used to be that the office cleaning was changing a lot when we brought in the vacuum cleaners, the backpacks, and brought in team or specialist cleaning. But now really the major changes are taking place in the hard floor care side of the work. And when I look at it, I see everything is in flux about floor care these days. The surfaces are different and new and changing. The equipment that we're using is changing. The chemicals that we're using are different. The processes that we're using are evolving also. And even the approaches to managing the floor care itself and how we focus our energies and our costs and our work is changing in this process also. So the whole thing, it's really exciting actually. I think that there's probably never been a better time to be alive and involved in the cleaning side and specifically the hard floor work to see that changing and evolving. So let's next slide please. Let's just talk about a little bit about the surfaces that we're working on. I'm sure some of you have seen this out in your facilities. They're putting in these new types of surfaces and you go, well, let's see, what do I do to that? The LVT is a luxury vinyl tile. It has nothing to do with luxury really, but so strips and blocks and different sizes of vinyl. It's actually a printed material that's different than the old VCT or vinyl composition tile. Most of these new LVTs don't require any floor finish, or if they do, they're a special finish. They certainly don't like a lot of water, and they don't wear nearly as well, I don't think, as some of the old VCT that we used to have. We're seeing a lot more solid vinyl, linoleum, natural materials coming along these days. Polished concrete is really one that is a major change. Many facilities now are pulling out a lot of the older floors that they used to have and are putting in polished concrete or just polishing the slab. And in many new facilities, even schools as well, we're seeing just polished concrete in the hallways because of the low-cost maintenance on that. Same thing with terrazzo. And terrazzo is kind of like a brother or sister of concrete. It's just the rocks that are different. The rest of the material stays the same. And they're unique also in that they can be maintained many different ways. So that's a major change that we're seeing. And terrazzo's coming back as a floor covering also. It kind of went away for a while, but it's really coming back now. Very popular, especially in LEED and buildings as well. Pre-finished wood is a change. We used to finish it on site. Now it's purchased from the retailer or the manufacturer, and it's got finish already on it. You just install it. And bamboo is something that's kind of a unique type of a service. Not wood at all. It's actually a grass, but we're seeing it being put down in these LEED facilities. And again, both of these issues very sensitive to moisture, extremely sensitive to moisture. And we're seeing some exotics, leather on the floor, glass materials on the floor, even metal surfaces being put on the floor. And again, these require different maintenances. And again, they may last, have a different life cycle or return on investment as far as their length of how long they're going to be functional. And a lot of these surfaces and a lot of the new ones coming out don't require any finish. In some cases, they have special products or they have their own finishes they want to sell to you. Or they specifically prohibit putting finish. And a lot of times it relates to the problem of taking off the finish. If you use a lot of moisture and you water and use a lot of harsh chemicals in that stripping process, then that many times will get down between the tiles and damage the tile or damage the surface or take some material out of the floor itself that is supposed to be there. The next slide, please. New equipment. One of the interesting ones that I saw here is kind of the last 2 or 3 years was the micro auto scrubbers. We've always seen the big auto scrubbers and riders and large pieces of equipment, but one of the things we're seeing now is they've really shrank them down where they're like the size of a vacuum cleaner, maybe 2, 3, 4 inches tall, a foot wide, 14 inches wide, hold a couple gallons of water, and the benefit being they can get under things, they can get in the corners, they're lightweight, they're fairly inexpensive, and they do the most important part about it is they put down fresh water, they scrub the floor, and then they suck it up with vacuum removal. And I would stress that vacuum removal is real critical when it comes to properly cleaning floors, not to mention using clean water instead of dirty water, which has been a problem that's kind of haunted us for many years. The other thing, engineered water. You've seen the Tennant systems with the Echo water, where they treat the water various ways before they put it on the floor. We've also seen foam being used instead of actual water being put down, so there's less pickup and you get more operational time with your machinery. Also, microfibers and flat mops, most of us are familiar with those, but if you're not using those, that's a mistake. Again, you can't use them everywhere, but if you've got smooth floors that are fairly relatively clean, microfibers are far more effective than the string mops that are out there. And then bucketless mopping, where the mop, you've got the flat mop generally, but the solution is actually on the handle or in the handle. And there's a number of those out there. And this eliminates the toting a lot of water. It eliminates putting dirty water back on the floor. And they're quite effective. Also, there's less risk of damage and injury to people because you don't have to lift that bucket or dump that bucket. It's all right in the handle. And robotics, I know some people raise their eyebrow and go, yeah, that's not effective. But I can tell you that I think there's kind of a tipping point coming with the robotics, being the wages are getting much higher now, and all the benefits that people are getting and expecting. And the cost of these things is going to come down. We understand there's been a major acquisition of the IntelliBot system, and I think you're going to see that changing here. Also, the other thing that causes this tipping point is it's getting very difficult to find and keep qualified workers on the job. So when that happens, they aren't going to quit building buildings, and they're not going to quit cleaning buildings. They're either going to engineer us out of it in one way, and with better HVAC systems and clean room environments, but also you're going to see more robotics coming along. I think that's a for sure thing. They may not be effective right now, but the airplane that was originally flown back at Kitty Hawk is not the same airplane we ride in today. So I think you're going to see a lot of changes coming in that with the technology. Next slide, please. Here's just a couple examples. I was at a recent trade show here. This is a Tennant machine, and if you notice on there, it actually has a digital screen on it. And I'm not sure if this one talks to you or not, but I'm sure that they will be if they're not shortly. And I would give a shout out too to Tennant. They really have been an excellent company for bringing cutting edge products to the market. A lot of people make some minor changes, but the Tennant company deserves recognition for really bringing some new technology into the marketplace. Along the same line, I would stress too the importance of working with your local sanitary supplier and distributor to take advantage of the resources they have available, and also possibly attending some of the trade shows that are out there so that you kind of know what's coming as well. I would also mention that Spartan Chemical Company has an excellent training facility. If you ever get a chance to take one of their classes or go and attend something at their training facility, it is first class, one of a kind in the country. Betco has a good one also, but again, these are resources that people can take advantage of. Just ask and put some pressure on your suppliers and distributors to help you with supporting the training in your organizations. I also mentioned WAXI has been a good pusher on bringing training to the marketplace also. Next slide, please. We're seeing a lot of new chemicals. We've had the ultra concentrates where they're multiple thousands to one instead of 5 to 1 or 10 to 1 or 128 to 1. Another major change has been the automated dilution systems where you don't mix anything yourself. It's either in the machine already or you've got it on the wall. And then the engineered water, we talked about that a little bit already, but there's at least 8 to 10 different companies offering these different engineered water systems where they eliminate the need for, in some cases, sanitizers, disinfectants, and detergents in the water. And that's a major change. And so that what really we're seeing is a reduction or an elimination in some cases of chemicals being used. And there is a movement, even what we call chemical-free cleaning. There's actually an organization called the Chemical-Free Cleaning Network, and there's a book out there on by Vince Elliott on chemical-free cleaning as well. One of the major changes that we're starting to see and is really going to have a lot of impact and is already impacting a number of facilities is nano-based products where they're putting these treatments and penetrants on the surface and again doing away with the floor finish and utilizing these nano coatings. And I would lastly mention here the importance of the certification of the products, that we get products that have been tested and validated out there. And also there's some third-party training programs and certification programs like SIMS and Green Seal where they actually come and audit your internal operations to see that you're running your programs properly and certify you as a green cleaning operation or a green cleaning organization, which is very important when you're dealing with many of the newer facilities and the LEED buildings. And this is especially important in educational and healthcare, in the public sector, and in the municipalities, government agencies, military. They're very much into this LEED movement and also certification of their workers. Next slide, please. I've stuck in some of these nano resources. I know people, sometimes you tend to, nobody tells you where to get it. Well, here's some different places for the nano treatments themselves. The Innovex and the Simic solutions are hard floor covering type materials, and some of these other ones are disinfectant materials. And what's changing is that we used to put the disinfectant on and, dwell times, 7 to 10 minutes. These new types of products actually sink in and become molecularly a part of the material itself that they're being put on, and they can last up to 1 year creating this disinfectant or sanitizing capability. So that is a major change that's going to be coming up down the road here in the future also. And they're out there already. These aren't things that are coming. These are things that are here. You may not be aware of them, and they may not be widely used yet, but they're definitely out in that marketplace. And then lastly, there's an article that was in the ISSA magazine last month about the nanotechnology and some of the changes taking place there. Next slide, please. So what we're seeing here is not only these products and these equipment, but the actual processes. One of the biggest ones, and it's definitely a movement, is eliminating floor finish. I mean, that's a real shocker for those of us who have been around for a long time and have always said we got to protect the floor and put finish on it and then take the finish off. It's sacrificial, and then put more finish on. But a lot of these floors, there is no finish being put on, or it's put on at the factory and it's permanent. And then when you eliminate that burnish, that strip, and that refinish cycle, you basically cut your cost in half. So it does take a little adjusting to it, but that is definitely an emerging trend. And some of it's based on these diamond impregnated floor pads. Either there's a diamond impregnated into the floor pad itself, or they're on top of the floor pad. And these are being used on not only the VCT tile, not only finished floors, but almost all the stone floors, the concrete floors, and the terrazzo floors. And they come in all different kinds of grits, from as low as about 400 up to as high as 11,000. So do your research and see where you might be able to try these, because they really give you that shine, or the luster at least, without putting floor finish down, without ongoing burnishing, stripping, and refinishing. We mentioned the nano coatings again. I'll let you follow up on that. And then the chemical-free. You've probably seen the Boost system by Clark, or there's one called Dry Scrub, where they actually don't use any stripper to strip the floor. And then the one, they're using this maroon-colored pad, which came out of the wood industry, to actually strip the floor. Again, if you've got a tremendous amount of buildup, they're not too practical, but they definitely are great for light to medium scrubbing of floors, and a light stripping also. And again, when you do these processes, there is actually a cost reduction there in labor costs, but also supplies too. Again, you aren't buying finish, and you aren't buying stripper, and you aren't buying those stripping pads. So there's definitely some savings, and we see it anywhere from 50 to 65% possible in facilities. When you got a few million square feet, or even a few thousand square feet, that can make a big difference in your budget. Normally, the numbers that we see floating around is that floor care costs range anywhere from, if you're doing stripping, finishing, and burnishing, you're up in $1.50 to $1.75, 80 cents a square foot per year to take care of those floors. And when you cut that in half, you're down to 70, 80 cents, 60 cents a square foot. That is a considerable savings, and that's why we're seeing all these grocery stores pulling out their VCT tile. That's why we see the Home Depots and the Lowells removing or not putting in any kind of floor covering themselves, just polishing the concrete. All the Costcos, even my local Goodwill, pulled out all their tile. So I'm sure you're seeing that around your neighborhoods as well. And next slide, please. So what we've got then, we've changed all these other things, and we also have to change our approaches to managing the floor care also. And one of the major ones here is micro versus macro scheduling. We're looking at small areas instead of looking at the whole facility. So again, color coding, and then different maintenance schedules for different areas. We're also seeing a movement to day cleaning, where the work is actually being done around day cleaning. It might be expanded day, 6 a.m. to 7 p.m., but it is considered day cleaning, so they can shut the lights and the power off at night in most areas, or heat, basically. And we're focusing more on prevention in high traffic areas, and some of these other areas that don't need frequent service or don't need service, we're stretching those out farther, which allows us to maintain things looking well and safely and healthy, but also cut our costs. And using the computer to do scheduling, to do quality control and costing of these services. And we're seeing more part-time staff being used. And also the next generation. We have an issue here with a lot of older people getting ready to retire in our industry. And the next generation looks at it a little bit differently. They don't want to work full-time. And they want to do some social good. And this is one area where they can do some of that because, again, using the green and sustainable approaches to our work is good for everyone. And then we're also seeing contracted services in educational facilities. Next slide, please. The comment I would make about restrooms here, just briefly, is that you cannot properly and adequately maintain the floors in a restroom with a mop. A microfiber mop is definitely a better approach, but you really got to spray and vac and suck that solution up if you want to remove odors and keep that grout clean, because our mopping system is flawed. We use dirty water. We put water on, but the time you get to the other side of the room or the second bathroom or the third bathroom, you can't see the bottom of the bucket, and you're putting dirty water back on, and it's counterproductive. And you don't need a big system to do it. There are those available, but a garden sprayer and spraying it on, hitting it with a deck brush, and then vacuuming it up with an inexpensive vacuum that has a good squeegee is an excellent approach. And one thing I would mention, the Kaivac has a great little machine called an Omniflex. It's a very reasonably priced and just got a great vacuum. It's got a 50-foot hose on it and just an excellent squeegee system. Next slide. Carpeting, don't forget about the process there. The key thing with carpeting is vacuuming and dry soil removal, because the majority of the soil in there is dry. Put water on it, you make mud, basically, and it's harder to get out. So vacuuming is critical, at least in the high traffic areas to start with, and regularly. Encapsulating, which is a different process than what we've been using in the past, and then some less frequent wet extraction to remove all the stuff. And remember, interim cleaning and wet cleaning or deep cleaning are two different concepts and two different purposes. Next slide. Science-based cleaning. You know, there's just a lot going on these days. You really have to stay on top of what's going on. There are systems out there where we're testing now using a gloss meter and a thermometer and ATP. These systems out there can validate that the cleaning actually is getting done. It's just not enough to look at it or to wipe it with your hand or a white glove. These days we have to actually prove that the processes we have are doing the job they're intended to, and if they're used properly, they do actually work. Next slide. And again, I just would stress here that there's a lot of information. I remember when I came into cleaning, you said there was only one guy teaching classes and one guy with a book. Today, there's thousands of people out there and tremendous resources with the internet. And you really need to work to keep yourselves up to date with seminars, books, videos, the internet, learning from everybody you can. Take advantage of the IICRC and the different certifications they have available. Attend the trade shows like the ISSA. There's one for carpet and fire restoration called The Experience. And there's others out there, too, for stone industry and the wood industry. That information is available, but again, you are the one that's responsible for that. If you don't do it, you aren't going to get the benefits. And what happens is that you get outdated, and then other people get the better assignments, they get the premium work, they get the jobs that pay more, they get the premium accounts. So it's really your responsibility to improve yourself and stay on top of what's going on. Next slide. There's my contact information. If I can help you in any way, you have any questions, you can call me on my cell phone or email me. Be happy to share anything with you. And again, thank you very much for attending, and I hope that you will challenge yourself to try to put to work some of the things that I've talked about and that our next speaker will give you also. Good luck. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you so much, Bill. I really appreciate you sharing your time and your expertise. I do have one bone to pick with you. I actually don't think green cleaning is the future. I think it's today, and I think we're already seeing that transition happening. But I'm glad to see that you're helping push it forward and keeping that trend moving in the right direction. All right. Let's just keep moving on to our next speaker, because our next speaker is Pat Pizzo, who is on the ground in the schools, because we want to make sure that we're always grounded by having people who are in schools and cleaning. So before I do my brief introduction of Pat, let me just ask another quick question. of you all. Whether you have a green cleaning program, a green floor care program, or not, what do you see as the biggest challenge of implementing a green floor program? Take a moment to answer that. I'm going to introduce Pat. Patrick holds a Master's of Business Administration and Advanced Certificate as a School District Business Leader from Long Island University. He's currently at the dissertation stage of his doctorate in educational leadership from Concordia University, Chicago. Pat's dissertation examines teachers' perception of sustainability as correlated to the learning environment. Prior to working at East Meadow Schools, he spent several years as Deputy Regional Facilities Manager for the New York City Department of Education, supervising the cleaning and operations of 39 school buildings. Patrick is a New York City licensed stationary engineer and a refrigeration engineer. He is also a past award winner, two-time award winner for the American School and University Green Cleaning Awards. He is also a Green Clean Leadership Council member for Healthy Schools Campaign. He is a friend and a colleague, and we're excited to have him here. Real quick, let's look what you guys have to say. I am going to share our poll. Looks like what has been identified as the biggest challenge of floor care. New equipment is cost prohibitive. Training needs makes implementation challenging. Those are the biggest thing. I would say no surprise, but Pat, I wonder if you're going to have something to say about that. So Pat, the floor is yours.
All right. I think maybe I could answer some of those concerns, hopefully. So thank you again. I'm Pat Pizzo, Assistant to the Superintendent for Administration and Special Services for East Meadow Schools. I'm also a lecturer for the Director of Facilities Certificate Program at Hofstra University. Next slide, please. Okay. It's important to understand that what we're trying to achieve from a health perspective in green cleaning. Green cleaning is using products and methods that are most apt to preserve human health. Another way to achieve this goal is to minimize the amount of chemicals used where possible. Next slide, please. To accomplish this necessary goal, input from all levels of your organization is necessary, along with proper training of the end users of the product selected. Innovation must be a component of moving a program forward, but this must be done with caution. Pilot programs first. All pilot programs must be evaluated to find the best solution. This includes floor care, which is our largest area that we maintain. Next slide, please. Okay, the objectives of a green approach are quantifiable. Cost savings are measurable, as maintenance can be completed more efficiently, productivity can be increased, and the use of chemicals can be decreased. We have implemented these changes in our program. Okay, next slide, please. To begin, your current floor surfaces and process used to maintain them must be identified. Do you have terrazzo flooring, vinyl tile, or wood floors? If so, we're going to cover some potential options for your program. These types of floorings are my focus for today's presentation. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, first of all, does terrazzo need wax? Well, absolutely not. Wax is not designed for a terrazzo floor. Is traditional wax needed for a vinyl tile? Well, yes and no. Wax is needed to protect tile, but the chemicals used in the wax can be changed to a better solution. Traditional wax contains styrene, which should not be used in the built environment. Styrene is the bonding agent for wax, which then requires very strong chemicals to break the molecular bond. Eliminating styrene, therefore, then removes not one but two problems from your floor care program. Okay, first let's look at options for terrazzo and chemical avoidance. Next slide, please. For terrazzo floors, switch to diamond pads. Diamond pads are a cost-effective option to diamond cutting machines. In this method, once you remove any existing wax or sealer products applied prior to the switch, you are polishing the stone and no chemicals are needed moving forward. To keep with this method of chemical avoidance, maintain floors on a routine basis by use of floor scrubbers using no chemicals, only ionized water. Also, dust mops should be microfiber, washed with an eco-friendly laundry detergent, because treated dust mops should be avoided unless you're able to identify the chemicals used to treat them. Okay. Finally, keep in mind that without wax for salt to eat into a floor on winter days, floors can be restored to their proper condition by running your chemical-free auto scrubber over the floor. No need to completely redo the floor, as is the case with a terrazzo surface which is covered by wax. Next slide, please. Okay, chemicals are needed for maintaining vinyl tile and wood floors, but the best options must be selected. Problems related to chemicals include both immediate or acute reactions and long-term low-level impact. Acute reactions are easily identifiable, but long-term low-level impacts are harder to identify. When exposed to a small amount of harmful chemical over time, there are often health impacts which may present after several years. These health impacts are hard, if not impossible, to show a direct cause and effect. But here's what we do know. We can look at safety data sheets and product ingredients to find if harmful chemicals are present, and if they are, avoid them. If the option is using a product that does not contain harmful chemicals, or one that does, the decision should be easy. If cost is the primary factor, which is often the case, the solution we propose actually results in cost savings. If there is a question of whether the green solutions we propose are effective, please pilot them first and decide for yourself. There are really no good arguments, in our opinion, against the greenest option from the research that we've done here. Next slide, please. Okay, green wax is better than traditional wax, and here's why. Traditional wax contains styrene, which besides being the bonding agent that makes the wax durable, also yellows in a couple of weeks. This yellowing effect is the primary reason why traditional wax needs to be applied, removed, and recoated so often. Without styrene, wax does not yellow. But there are other advantages to green wax. With green wax not containing styrene, the molecular bond is more easily broken, and stripping can be done without the use of harmful chemicals. Also, you do not need to strip all the way down when there is not a yellowing effect, and the time, product, and labor are then reduced. The obvious question is then, how can the wax be durable enough to meet my needs? Okay, this is a good question, but there is an answer. Change in process. Green wax must be applied and removed in a different way than traditional wax. Durability is achieved by buffing after 2 coats. This causes heat, which fuses the first 2 coats of wax to the tile. These first 2 coats then become, in effect, a sealer coat, which can remain for about 3 years. With this sealer coat remaining, less wax is needed during cleaning periods, and as a result, less labor. To make the final coat of wax more durable, buff after the last coat as well. For wood floors, used water-based polyurethane and a mechanical applicator. VOCs are reduced, and water polyurethane dries faster to allow recoating sooner. Water-based polyurethane applied with several thin coats will achieve a comparable level of quality without the negatives of oil-based products. Next slide, please. Okay, this slide was taken from the United States Environmental Agency. I want to read this exactly to convey the facts. This is according to the EPA again. Styrene is primarily used in the production of polystyrene plastics and resins. Acute exposures to styrene in humans result in mucous membrane and eye irritation and gastrointestinal effects. Chronic exposures to styrene in humans results in effects on the central nervous system, such as headache, fatigue, weakness, and depression. CSN dysfunction, hearing loss, and peripheral neuropathy. Does not sound like the sort of chemical to be around children or adults for that matter, in our opinion here. Please think about what is contained in dust found in built spaces, primarily skin cells and wax. When buffing traditional wax, styrene was released into the air as part of the dust. We think that's something really important to think about. Okay, the next slide, please. Well, practically speaking, how do we find out if our current wax contains styrene? Okay, you may not have seen the word styrene in any of your safety data sheets, but it is likely there. Here is what to look for under hazardous ingredients as shown in this slide. Often, chemical names are difficult to identify. That is why it is important to find and then look up the ingredients in the products used by your staff. Okay, next slide, please. And I think one more. Okay, again, change in process goes with change in product. No styrene means no stripper. Green wax can be removed by a maroon or black pad, as the previous speaker had mentioned as well about a maroon pad. Difficult areas can be addressed by square pad machines, which are more aggressive but cost-effective and a mechanical solution. The question could be then, how can we afford to buy a new machine? Well, keep in mind the cost of wax and stripper each year, which has been eliminated to clearly state the facts. Okay, under accidental release measures, some of the things that are listed in the safety data sheets, and this is an actual safety data sheet that I cut and paste and put into this slideshow. Personal precautions, put on appropriate personal protective equipment. Environmental precautions and cleanup methods, absorb spill with inert material, dry sand or earth, and place in a chemical waste container. Use a water rinse for final cleanup. Handling and storage, avoid contact with skin, eyes, and clothing. Do not taste or swallow. Avoid breathing vapors or mist. Wash thoroughly after handling. Remove and wash contaminated clothing and footwear before reuse. Product residue may remain on in empty containers. All precautions for handling the product must be used in handling the empty container and residue. Only use with adequate ventilation for commercial and industrial use only. I know I could speak for myself. We just do not want stripper in our buildings for any reason. That's the reason why we've eliminated stripper for use with terrazzo, where we've eliminated stripper NWAX, but also with the tile floors, because there's no way we would allow that product to be commonly used in our buildings. Okay, the next slide, please. Okay, the summary is chemicals can be eliminated, and change in process must be part of any change in product. Our methods decrease cost and labor while increasing health and indoor environmental quality. Okay, last slide, please. This is my actual analysis of what we've done here. Based on a district with 1,340,000 square feet of occupied space, and everything we've achieved here is scalable, repeatable, and I believe necessary for the well-being of both the people we serve and the frontline staff who are impacted by our choices. Thank you for the opportunity to share our program.
Great. Wow, Pat, that was great. Thank you so much for that great presentation. I believe I've learned a lot, and if anyone has any questions, please put them into the chat box downstairs, and we'll on the lower right-hand corner, and we will get to your questions. I would like to say your presentation makes me think of an experience that I had a couple of years ago, speaking to a facility operator here in the greater Chicagoland area, that he implemented a green cleaning program, and I asked him why. And he said to me that he used to watch his staff strip the floors of the building with great frequency, and their staff would get dizzy and stop and just sit down and pause for a few minutes in the middle, and that was just part of what they had to do. And he said, I knew there had to be a better way because I couldn't treat his staff that way. So that inspired that one facility operator to go to a green program, and I'm sure your presentation and your work is inspiring others as well. So thank you so much. So let's we've got about 12 minutes left of the hour, and so we're going to take a little time to go through questions. If you have a question, just again, put a chat in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, and we will get to it. And in that, I will let me start by asking some of the questions that we have. All right. Let's start with number one. Okay. We don't have a specific name to anyone, so let me ask for all of you. What is your opinion on dyed and polished concrete flooring as a sustainable flooring type? And then I will also put that in as a specific caveat, and dyed and polished concrete flooring for use in schools. Who would like, either one of you, would you like to jump on that?
I could say we don't have any of those surfaces currently in the district I work in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I know overall, as the previous speaker mentioned, there is a movement towards that, and I think there are several applications for it, but I'm not really familiar with it for a school application, I don't have any firsthand experience on that at this point in my career.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll comment also. I guess it is definitely an emerging trend. We see it being put into facilities, and I actually see educational facilities, pulling out their VCT tile and polishing and staining their concrete. The only problems that people tend to have with the polished concrete is sometimes it's oversold. They think that you don't have to do anything. It's a maintenance-free. None of these floors are maintenance-free. They all require maintenance. They may not require as much restoration, or restoration. And that's where the problem kind of comes with the concrete, is they don't do anything to it. They just let it all kind of pile up and think they don't have to do anything, and then it goes downhill. But you have to maintain it with the diamond pads, and then it does last. And also, the other thing is stains. It is a little receptive to stains, but some of these new nano coatings will actually prohibit or prevent the acids and some of the other harsher foods that we sometimes spill on it from damaging it. So I think it's an excellent surface, and again, one that is very cost effective. It wouldn't be being used in so many kinds of facilities that it is being now if it wasn't working.
And as a quick follow-up, as a distinction between use in a classroom versus a hallway versus an office, is there a distinction, or is it not a significant distinction?
Well, there seems to be. The classrooms, again, that surface is a little noisier and a little harder, but not totally different than a VCT tile as far as the absorption of noise, I don't think. So I'm not exactly sure on the background noise and that type of thing, but I think you're going to see it used in all kinds of locations.
All right. Okay, very good. Here's a question. We only use water in our auto scrubbers for our resilient floor care. Is there a downside to this strategy? Either one of you would like to jump on that?
Well, we have in all of our elementary schools, in the hallways, we're completely chemical free. We use only water, but it is ionized water. It is a machine that has that component built in. So I'm wondering if it's a machine that has some kind of ionization of the water, or if it's just regular water. I would think that if it was something they were using water just as a routine maintenance, I don't know if that would there was probably have to supplement that with some other method as well.
I just, I think there's a number of these different systems available. Some of them treat the water in the machine. Some you treat the water first before it goes into the machine. And again, I think it also depends on exactly what kind of surface or area you're working on. If you're working in a kitchen, you probably aren't going to be able to go chemical free because you got greases and oils in there, and they aren't going to break down with water by themselves. If you're in auto body shops or automotive shops, different kinds of places like that. So it depends on the location, but if you don't need to use a chemical, there's no reason to use it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So here's a specific question for Bill. Can you tell me more about, can you speak more to training available for schools through distributors? You mentioned that.
Yeah, well, a lot of the distributors have training. You have to really work with them, though, to make sure that the training they're giving you isn't just product-oriented, because a lot of them just like to stand up and talk about their machinery. What you really want is, facts and information and actual use of the machinery. So I work real hard on that. But there's a number of them that have online programs. Many of the manufacturers do. Many of the associations do. If you're not using some distributor or manufacturer or association training and support, you're missing a bet, because they have some very good materials. Many of them do. Waxy specifically has a complete online training program where you can get certificates, and they track the training that you get in many different subjects. And then they could be supported on site also. And I would stress, though, it's not all about watching the computer. It's not all about reading the papers. It's not all about the lecture or the PowerPoint. The majority and the best learning is when you're doing it hands-on, supported by those other types of learning mechanisms. So don't get over carried away with sitting somebody down to watch a PowerPoint or listen to a video. Really get them on the machine and then coach them and counsel them and train them in that process. And lastly, I would mention the iicrc.org. They have something like 35 different types of training programs, as well as international standards that have been published on many different cleaning factors. And they're really the only organization that really has legitimate technical certification training that I'm aware of in the country.
Mm-hmm. All right, great, very good. Now I've got a question for Pat. Pat, you mentioned that buffing after applying 2 coats of a green wax would help create a sealed surface. Do you need to allow for the green wax to cure for 24 hours before buffing?
We'll wait to make sure it's completely dry. We haven't necessarily waited 24 hours. You would need to have it dry first, but usually a couple of hours. With the green wax, it does tend to dry a little bit faster. So, but we haven't actually forced, intentionally held up 24 hours. We may at the end of the day, buff it and then do it the next day. But it's, I think a couple hours should be fine.
Okay, thank you. I think this one is for Bill. Bill, here the statement is, we don't disinfect our floors. Do you think we need nanotechnology for disinfected floors?
Well, if you don't have a need to disinfect your floors, then there's no need for a nano product that would have the capabilities of disinfection. But not all of them have that. Many of the new products coming on the market they densify and harden the floor, as well as in some cases have disinfecting capabilities. So if you don't have that need to disinfect, then you don't need to use that specific product. It depends on the kind of area and the facility you're in, whether you'd need that. So you kind of, and again, one thing that Pat said I would stress also here is that don't buy any of these things and put them on wholesale. Take and test an area for several months and make sure it's going to work and it doesn't have some downside, because these things, it's like the wild, wild west right now with this stuff. There's a lot of it on there. There's a lot of promises, and it's really very new technology, and we really don't have a background history on how this stuff is going to work long term. So be careful, test before you buy into something and see how it works for you in the reality, in your situation with your people.
Yep.
But you'll be missing the boat if you don't look at these things also.
Yeah. So I've got a couple of questions that are a little bit more general, asking about, do green floor finishes last as long? Do they? But it seems to me that the answer isn't clear yes or no, but the answer is taken along with proper training, new training. Green floor finishes last as long, if not longer, than traditional floor finishes. Pat, can you speak for a moment to the challenges of introducing new training for your staff when you're trying these new processes and new equipment or new products?
Yeah, well, one of the things that we do, talking about training from vendors, anytime we make any kind of change in product, we will research what the process is. And anybody who wants to sell us something, they're going to need here, and they're going to need to get on a machine or do whatever it is that they're trying to sell to us. They're going to need to demonstrate to my people. So yeah, that's a big piece of it is the proper training. And people who these vendors who are looking to make a sale, they usually have some knowledge to share. Again, you have to make sure it's on a topic that they're answering your question and not just focusing on the sale of their product. But we have had a lot of cooperation from a lot of excellent vendors out there. And as for the durability of the wax, that was our concern. And we weren't able to have success with green wax until we changed the process. But any product you have, there's a manufacturer's recommended way to use it. You have to remember, you're changing a product, you have to change the process. And when people who haven't had success with green wax, more often than not, it's because they haven't changed the process along with the product. Once you change that to that new product and you handle it in a different way, you're going to see that it's going to be as durable, and because without that yellowing effect, that it's going to be that base coat is going to be able to last for at least 3 years. We do it every 3 years. We'll completely strip down to the tile. Probably can go longer.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm going to wrap this up because we're about at the end of the hour. I think we'll ask one more question, and this one is directed towards Bill. Bill, you outlined a lot of options for new equipment, but do you see a singular best practices for schools? Do you have a recommendation based on building size, or does it just depend on our interests?
Well, I guess before I answer that, I just kind of like to go backwards here about the waxes and the finishes. We do hear a lot of complaints about the finishes don't hold up as good as the older finishes, and I think Pat is right to some degree also here that you've got to change your process. It's like when green chemicals first came out and started being used. They say, oh, they're different. They don't work as fast. Well, that's right. You have to allow more dwell time. You might have to have some temperature added to them. And again, the same thing is with the floor care. If you don't change the process and focus more on prevention of keeping the dirt out and maybe more frequent removal of the grit and the things that cause damage to the floors, then your green floor finish is not going to hold up. So if you change the process, they will probably work just as good. The other thing I would mention is when wood floor finishes first came out, 10 years ago, for 5 years people said they're crap, they don't work. After 5 years, they figured it out, and now they're better than the old finishes we had by a long shot. And I think that same thing will take place with the finishes and the chemicals that we're using now, is that they will get better as time goes on, and they'll resolve the issues. So they're better than what we have. They're certainly good and certainly competitive these days, but I think they're only going to get better. as to your last question, you know, every situation is different. You've really got to do some testing and some research and keep yourself current with what's going on and see what works best in each situation. There is no one standard fits all, but these days with things changing so quickly, you really have to stay on top of the technology as well as the future of the technology. Otherwise you get behind, you're not competitive, and then you're vulnerable to being replaced or have a contractor come in or somebody else taking the work away from you. So.
Okay, great. All right, I'll ask that one more question and then I'll wrap up. The last question, if you were to install a floor today in a daycare or in a school, what type of floor would you recommend in terms of use within a daycare and for being able to keep it clean easily?
Well, I'd probably recommend a sheet vinyl or a linoleum type of material with some type of an area rug that could be rolled out for the children to play on or to sleep on and could be easily removed for proper cleaning and replaced if it gets damaged over time, and avoid the wall-to-wall carpet because it's just expensive, it's difficult to take care of, and something that can be rolled up and put down as needed is much more functional in those type of child development centers, in my opinion.
And Pat, do you agree or have a different opinion?
Yeah, no, I really I would agree with what Bill said on that.
Great, nice to have agreement. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah. So on that note, let's end on that sense of agreement. I'm going to say, everyone who's still on, thank you so much for joining us. If you have a school, know of a school, work with a school that's interested in applying for the Green Clean Award, please let them know. Share that information. We love to highlight the great work, the bright spots that are going on all over the country. I got to thank you all. Thank our speakers for being with us. Thank you for our listeners for being here today. If you have any questions, you feel free to reach out to us. Go to our website, Healthy Schools Campaign, or greencleanschools.org. And we look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. Thank you all so much, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Goodbye, everybody. Keep it clean out there.
All right,
Thank
bye-bye.
you. Take care. Bye.